Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's me, Matt Slick. You're listening to Matt Slick Live, and I hope you are all having a good day and you had a good resurrection weekend. It was really good stuff. And if you want, you can give me a call today. All you have to do is dial 877 722 and I want to hear from you. Give me a call, and we can talk. Now, today is April 1st. No jokes coming forth. And I'm not going to play any games with that. I don't know. I'm being too old for it. I don't know. But at any rate, hey, look, I want to hear from you. We have nobody waiting right now. You can give me a call. If this is the first time you're listening, then I'm a Christian apologist, which means I defend the Christian faith. In fact, I was on Discord this morning, and I was about a couple hours. I was talking about Islam with some people doing that. And so I had a good time there. Then had to go run errands. Okay, so it was really great. And if you want to call me, like I said, 877-207-2276. Okay. Now, here we go, getting that set right there. All right. Good. So I'm working on this article on the term Son of Man. And I went and I looked, it's not released yet. I went and I looked at every instance of it in the entire Bible. And it occurs, I don't know how many times does it occur, 100 and some odd times. And 70, in fact, what was interesting is it occurs, I think it was 88 times in the New Testament. 77 of them are when Jesus refers to himself that way, which I thought was really interesting. And then it occurs in the Old Testament, but in the Old Testament, it's always in reference to just people. Except in Ezekiel, it's in reference to Ezekiel, the individual. And in Daniel 7, 13, and 14, it's in reference to the pre-incarnate Christ. And I enjoyed that. I'm going through and I am listing out just the phrase that Jesus was talking about himself and the things related to what he said about himself, as he says, the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He has no place to lay his head. Okay, he's a vagabond kind of thing. And the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Oh, so he's Lord of the, so just writing all these things down and developing an article on that. And hopefully we'll release it in a couple of days. So doing that kind of stuff. And also I had to run an errand today and got to talk to someone, a worker, an employee at a place. And so I won't say her name, but if you're going to pray for her. She's the one who hurt her hand, and she knows Mormonism is false, and she wants to know what the truth is. So I gave her my contact information, and hopefully she and I will be able to talk. And I said, you come over to the house with my wife there. I said, I won't meet you alone any place, but, unless it's out in public. But I said, I can give you information if you want or whatever, because she was really curious and really interested in the dialogue. So I said, okay, good. And there we go. Now, okay, producer Keith, are we having problems with the phone line? Because I have a new gateway, a new internet connection, which everything should be up to date. Everything should be fine. And that's why I'm asking if we're having any problems there, because it came in. And can you hear me? You can't hear me there, huh? No radio, no audio. I'll figure that out. Okay. Everything looks fine on the settings. Yeah, that's good there. Should be working. And make sure everything's good there. But you know what? We did have a bit of a in that my cat, cats are. So I don't know if I have sound inside of Rumble, but my cat gets on the desk. Now he's a purebred Russian Maine Coon. He was given to us. That's another story. And he's just, we call him Flopper because he's just huge. He's 20 pounds and he's still growing. And he just gets onto things and things fall off because he's big. And so he knocked over, oh, you can hear me now? Good. He knocked over the sound box that I have on my desk that I use for part of this work. And I go, I don't know if it's broken or anything, but I guess it's okay. He says, you hear me? That's all right. So there we go. All right. Let's get to Spencer from North Carolina. Spencer, welcome. You're on the air.
How you doing today, Matt?
Oh, hanging in there, man. Just hanging in there, putting out fires and fixing things all the time. So what do you got, buddy?
I heard you one time recently talking about the King James version of the Bible, and that there was something in it that you didn't like about that Bible. Is there any other Bible that you would prefer that someone should study, and why?
Yeah, I prefer the NASB, the New American Standard Bible, because it's more literal to the Greek and it uses better manuscripts, ancient manuscripts, than the King James. The King James was good, and if people want to use it, that's fine, as long as they know where the problems are in it, like Romans 5:18, Titus 2:13, the Comma Johanneum, a few things and a few issues. And most people don't read the original King James. They read a modified, updated version of the King James. They don't realize that the original is very difficult to understand and read. And I have pictures of it on my phone, and because I have and a friend who has an original page of the first one, and so first edition, so I'll put it up there. But at any rate, so most people just don't know, and it's just the way it is. But the King James is good. But if you want serious study, what I would say is you need to use the NASB and or the ESV. I would say those are pretty good. I think the LEB.
Are you saying B as in boy or V as in victory?
The the NASB, New American Standard Bible. Okay. That's one I use.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Because I grew up in the King James version. I didn't know that there was stuff in it that wasn't right or anything like that. That's just what I was raised in.
Yeah, and it's fine.
I heard you speaking about that. I don't want to callers.
Yeah, it's fine. Except, look, the problems, for example, thee and thou. Why would you want? This is me. I don't understand this. Why would you want to memorize English from 400 years ago and then speak to modern people quoting it? I could never understand. If thou wilt believeth. Like, what? We just talk to me in normal English. That's all, And so, I grew up basically in Southern California, and you didn't do that. You just talk to people normally, and you'd want an updated version so you could quote it normally, naturally. And so that's where I developed that. But, the King James is fine. I mean, if people want to preach out of it and teach, that's fine, as long as they know those places where the translations in the King James weren't as good as they need to be. And I can show you a couple of those if you want, but okay. So not a big deal.
Yeah. So when was the new edition, the American Standard? How did they go about translating that from the King James to the American Standard?
They don't translate from the King James.
Was it?
It's not how it was done.
Well, convert it, I guess.
See, how it was done was this. When the King James was done, it used, from what I understand, 5th century documents. So let me explain what's going on. So in the 1st century, they wrote the New Testament. Those documents got copied very carefully, very meticulously. But as is often the case when people are involved, little errors would creep in, like forgetting the word "the," which is a single letter in Greek, or reading a line and putting, because they could be tired when they're copying, they could put a word twice, just things like this, okay? And so they might put a marginal note in. A scribe might put a marginal note in something, and then they put this document away, and 200 years later, someone else gets it. So he may have written it in the year 300, and in the year 500, someone finds this manuscript that's been lost, that someone put a marginal note in, and then they see this, and they see the marginal note. Like, what do we do with this? Because they don't know the context. Is it part of the original text? Now, if it's a commentary, they can tell that it's not part of the original. But what if, the word Christos, Christ, was put in there in the marginal note? Well, does that mean it belongs in the text, like next to Jesus, which is Jesus? They might put that in there. Well, this 5th century documents like that. Well, the idea generally is that the older the manuscripts, 4th century, 3rd century, 2nd century, the older the manuscripts, the more the closer they are to the original, and therefore they're going to have fewer what they call variants. So the NASB is translated from the Greek into the English, for example, New Testament, from older manuscripts, as is the ESV. Where the King James is done with roughly 5th century documents. That's not exactly accurate, but it's, for the most part, it is. It's just a general rule of thumb. And so the older ones are just more accurate. And so what happens is the King James people will say, oh, the modern Bibles, they take stuff out. Well, not necessarily, because the King James could have put stuff in that didn't belong there in the original, because when they find older manuscripts since the King James is written and translated, they find out that these older manuscripts don't have some of the wording that is in the King James manuscripts that they used. So they go, up, this is older. This was an addition by a scribe. So therefore, they go back and they say, the King James people say, see, they took stuff out. No, it's not how it works. All right. So just so you know, there's roughly 6,000 Greek manuscripts of different sizes and different texts of the New Testament. And they are something like 99.85% textually identical. There's only a few places of textual variation. Okay?
Okay. Was there any books missing?
No.
In the King James Bible that are in the original manuscripts?
Nope. King James did a great job of translating a lot of stuff. Seriously, did a great job. But no, there's no additional books, taken in and out, or something like that. But when King James commissioned it, they translated the apocryphal books as well. But the apocryphal books were never considered scripture. They were just important historical documents, and they were also translated. So that's all that's going on. Okay?
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome, man. No problem at all. All right. God bless.
Hey, have a good night.
Okay. God bless.
Yeah, same to you. God bless you.
All right. Well, that was Spencer. Now, let's get to Luke from Washington, D.C. Luke, welcome. You're on the air. Luke, are you there? I hit the go button. You should be on. Now I'm talking to myself, filling in dead space till there's no dead air. Luke, might be a bad connection.
Hi.
Hey, there you go. All right.
Hello?
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Matt Stick. How are you?
I'm fine. Hanging in there. Just answering questions on this first day of April.
It's not a joke. It's very important question.
Okay.
John 20:31.
Okay. Yes.
What does John 20:31 mean?
Well, it says these things have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. To me, it's pretty simple. The New Testament.
If Jesus is called the Son of God.
Yes, he's the Son of God, yes. Hey, hold on, man. We got a break, okay? Hold on, we got a break. And we'll get to this afterwards. You can formulate your question, and then what we'll do is we'll give it a shot after the break, okay? Hey, folks, if you want to give me a call, 877-207-2276. We'll be right back. Please give me a call.
Happy Easter or Happy Resurrection.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus.
Guess what you can say the Monday after Easter, the whole week after Easter? You can say it today, tomorrow, any time of year. You can say Happy Resurrection. Why? Because Jesus Christ conquered death. He rose from the dead. He's alive right here. He's alive right now. The question is he living in you? That's why I say, not sanctimoniously, not that I'm better than anyone else, because I'm a rotten sinner saved by his amazing grace. I say happy resurrection instead of happy Easter, because I want people to know that resurrected Lord is living in me. Hey, the tomb is empty, so our lives don't have to be. Have you sought after and found the resurrected Lord? Is he living in you? Happy resurrection.
True Commentary with Stu Epperson, author of the book, Last Words of Jesus. Available now in bookstores. Learn more at lastwordsofjesus.com.
Here are the contest rules for the Truth Network. Prizes won are not transferable, redeemable for cash, or exchangeable for any other prize. All prizes must be redeemed for the station within 30 days of winning. Only one prize per household from any station of Truth Broadcasting within any 30-day period. The rest of our contest rules are listed under the About Us link at our website, truthnetwork.com. Thanks for playing and listening to the Truth Network.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager, Learning the Lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
What is dementia? Is it the same as Alzheimer's? What is vascular dementia, Lewy body, FTD, TBI, and CTE? If someone has memory loss, does that mean they have dementia? Millions of Americans ask these questions every day. I did too, and I learned. My wife, Ginny, developed dementia. I didn't know what to do or what was coming next. I'm Kevin Jameson, volunteer and president of the Dementia Society of America. I'm excited to offer you a free guide to understanding dementia. It's filled with facts about dementia, care planning, how doctors can help, and ways to keep your brain as healthy as possible. The Dementia Society of America is a national nonprofit, and we're ready to answer your questions. You want to live life to the fullest. I know that. Ginny did too, and I'm confident that we can help. Get your copy of the guide. Go to 1-800-DEMENTIA.org or call 1-800-DEMENTIA. Thank you.
It's Matt Slick Live, taking your calls at 877-207-2276. Here's Matt Slick.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. If you want to give me a call, all you have to do is dial 877-207-2276. You can also email me a comment or question. Just direct your email to info@carm.org, info@carm.org. Just put in the subject line, put in Carm question or radio question, radio comment would be fine. And we usually get to them. All right, let's get back on with Luke as soon as Keith reactivates Luke. Yeah, maybe he's panicking right now, running to the thing. Let's get to it. Come on, let's go. Or maybe we can get to Jamal. No, there we go. All right. Okay, Luke, welcome, buddy. You're back on.
So, this another verse, whoever confesses that Jesus is the Son of God, abides in him and he in God. 1 John 4:15. So he's Son of God. The Muslims always say Jesus is not a God, Son of God. They use these two verses. So what is your opinion of Son of God and Jesus is a God?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with some Muslims in a chat room earlier today. And I tell them that you must, or they should, understand what the words and the phrases mean in the context in which.
You can sit here.
It would be better
for you to look
at the house
okay.
where you.
Did you want to hold
yeah.
on? We're gonna okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to mute him because there's background noise and stuff. So I tell the Muslims that they must understand what the term means the way it was written, not the way they're saying it means. Because what the Muslims often say, the term Son of God means that God had a consort and that he had relations with her and then produced the offspring. And that they say that's false. I go, well, we agree that's false. It's not our position. And the term Son of God is a term related to the deity of Christ, showing his godness. And so what I'll tell them is that in that context at that time, it was a claim of equality with God. And the verse that you can go to prove that that is the case is John 5:18, where it says that Jesus was not only breaking the Sabbath, but he really wasn't, because it was in the view of the Jews. But it's another topic. Calling God his own Father, making himself equal to God. And so I say in the context of that time and the culture, that's what that phrase meant in relationship to Christ. So that's what I tell them. And with a reactivate Luke here to get him on because I put him on hold because of the background noise. But that's what I tell them. And that they need to understand it according to what the culture says, not what they say, 2,000 years later. Okay.
Do you have any link that you wrote? Did you have any link I can read about it? So I know.
Well, let me check. Let's see. Son of God. Go into Carm and type in the phrase Son of God. And I think I've got an article. I should do the Bible and the Quran agree on the terms God and Son of God. And if Jesus is called the Son of God, do you think that makes him God? And can Jesus be both God and the Son of God? Does the term Son of God mean that Jesus is not God? Who is the Son of God? Got all these articles that I've written, and Luke Wayne also joined in on that one to write about the term Son of God. So go to Carm, type in the phrase Son of God, and there you go. Okay. All right. Are you there?
Always when I go to this your Calm, I couldn't find out whatever I type, so I don't know what to do. Otherwise, I will not ask you a question like this.
Go to
I
Carm.
have a hard time to find out some.
Go to Carm. Go to the homepage. You'll see the search thing here at the top, and just type in Son of God and hit equal. That's it. And I just read you the articles that come up right there. Okay, just did it, and that's what happened.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, man. God bless. All right. If you want to give me a call, it's easy. 877-207-2276. Jamal from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Welcome. You're on the air.
Always a pleasure, Matt Slick.
Hey.
Thank you for taking my phone call.
Sure, man. No problem, man.
Wanted to ask what the significance is of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Okay.
That's it.
The Dead Sea Scrolls were scrolls written probably by the Essenian community. And they wrote before the time of Christ, shortly before, and maybe during. But they wrote, they did a lot of work of copying the Old Testament scrolls and put them in caves. And so I've been to Israel twice, and I've been in the cave, the first cave that they got the first Dead Sea Scroll out. I've been in Cave 1. And in that area, there's a place you can go to look at different caves. And it's an outlook. So there's a lot of caves. All right. So what happened is that the Essenes, what they did was they copied lots of documents. And one of the most important things is they copied the book of Isaiah. Now, before the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1946, I believe it was, or 47, the oldest copy of Isaiah was from the Masoretic scroll. It was copied right around 900 AD. So that means that compared to now, it's 1,100 years old. All right, so when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, they discovered one of the Isaiah scrolls in there. Well, they are dated around 100 BC, this one scroll. 100 BC is 1,000 years before the Masoretic scroll of Isaiah, which is dated around, the copy is around 900. It means it's 1,000-year difference, 1,000 years. And the reason this is so important is because they found out that the copying method for that 1,000 years was incredibly accurate. The critics didn't even raise any objections because it was so accurately transmitted over 1,000 years. They compared the Masoretic text to the Dead Sea Scroll text of Isaiah, and it's accurate. It's the same. So it's very significant because of that. Okay.
Okay. All right. I was listening to some preachers on Truth Network say, well, the Dead Sea Scrolls kind of give validity to Jesus Christ and what he was talking about, because if you say, well, Jesus and his followers, they kind of propped up his, I guess his reverence or his status because they went back and changed things according to the Bible, or
wait.
Jesus read the Bible and changed. Go ahead.
I'm confused. I'm not following you. So some people are saying that the Bible was changed. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just not getting it. The Bible was changed?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I could do it
That's
better.
all right. That's okay.
I'll give you that explanation. So they were saying people who are trying to discount Jesus in the Bible, and this was Lon Solomon that was saying some of this. So they were saying, well, Jesus was a con artist because he read some parts of the Bible and fashions his own history.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because to say con artist is just dumb.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. He's a con artist. Well, okay. Well, hold on. Because we've got a lot of responses to that potential. Right. A con artist. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's really good. Okay, we'll be right back, folks. After these messages, we'll get back with Jamal, and we'll be discussing this issue. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section, when Dad injured his back, when your basketball star tore his ACL. Opioids helped with the pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Opioids are powerful pain-reducing prescription medicines, but most people who are prescribed opioids don't finish their prescriptions. So millions of unused opioids are sitting in homes across the country. And tragically, more than 100 Americans die every day from overdoses involving opioids. What can you do to protect your family? Remove the risk of unused opioids from your home. Pills, patches, or syrups in drawers, purses, and cabinets, anywhere they might be hiding. To find out how to dispose of them properly, visit www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
For Love Worth Finding, here's Adrian Rogers with a treasure from the Word.
I was down in Florida one day. I had an engagement in South Florida. So I rented an automobile. I turned on the stereo, and I got the most gorgeous music. And then I got on this road, very little traffic. The sun was shining. The road was good. The car was beautiful. The music was glorious. And then after I had driven about 2 hours, I said, I ought to be there. I ought to be getting closer. And then it dawned on me. I was going the wrong way. I was making good time on the wrong road. And the good car and the music and all of these things that might be good were bad because they were taking me in the wrong direction. That's what religion is without the Lord. You see, the worst form of badness is human goodness, if human goodness keeps you from salvation. Paul said the things I counted for gain, they were loss. He said, my brothers, my sisters, the Jews, according to the flesh, he said, I bear them record. They have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. And they, going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God.
For more about Love Worth Finding and Adrian Rogers, visit our website at lwf.org.
Each word is a testimony.
I am here. God is good, and that's enough.
And his word is always true on the Truth Network.
God is good, and that's enough.
It's Matt Slick Live, taking your calls at 877-207-2276. Here's Matt Slick.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Let's get back on with Jamal. We're having a little bit of an issue here today. So there we go. All right. So Jamal, welcome, man. You're on the air.
Thanks for having me back.
All right. So Jesus was a con man.
No, those are not my words. As you probably know by now, it's just, this is what we have to fight out here, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Well, You know, I've had that kind of stuff said to me before by critics, and I say, okay, explain how he was a con man, explain how it worked. And while you're doing that, explain how he was born in Bethlehem according to the prophecy, was crucified according to the prophecy, how he walked in or rode in on a donkey according to the prophecy, 172,880 days after the command to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, which is found in Daniel 9, 24 through 27, and was the command to rebuild was on March 14, 445 BC, and 173,880 days is when Jesus came in. And don't forget to tell us how he was con people by saying he was crucified when the Jews knew what he looked like, the Romans knew what he looked like, and then he rose from the dead 3 days later. How is he a con man? How does that work? Please tell us. That'd be interesting for you to develop a theory that explains all of it as a con man. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no. You're talking about answering there. Yeah, exactly. And I've learned a lot of this by, of course, listening to the show. Then they were saying, well, let's see if I can phrase this correctly. He was first a con artist, and he adapted his life to the Bible. But, you talked about that pretty well, of course. And I think there was another argument. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, okay. I was going. Yeah, I've heard this before, and people say that he lied or he cheated. And I go, okay. So let's look at the context. So Rome was in military and political control of Israel, but Israel was allowed to have its worship. But Rome had Caesaropapism, which was emperor worship. But they let this little sliver of land and these people over there on the other side of the Mediterranean, they let them have their little god to serve. That's what the Roman attitude was. And the Sanhedrin did not want the balance between the Roman Empire and the people and the power in the land of Israel. They didn't want that messed up. So when little messiahs would come in, others that claimed to be Messiah type to deliver from the oppression of the Romans, they were quickly destroyed. So if it's a con artist, then can you please explain, if he's a con artist or he, fooled people, can you please explain how he got them, the disciples, to give up their livelihood, taking care of their families, and not just one, but a bunch, and to risk their families' lives by doing this, and risk excommunication by the Sanhedrin, and risk the idea of political pressure being brought down by Rome upon the Sanhedrin to stop them from saying Jesus is the Messiah, when in that culture at the time, part of the hope of the Messiah was that he would deliver from the oppressors of the Roman Empire. That's one of the things. The zealots, one theory is the zealots were there to help the Messiah rebel against the Roman Empire, and Judas Iscariot was a zealot. And one theory, just a theory, is that it might have been the case that what Judas was trying to do was force Jesus to act in order to deliver Israel from Rome. I mean, it just theory, So this is all interesting stuff. So if he's a con man, or if it wasn't true, or he deceived people, then how did he get all these people to join him based on what they said they saw? And that's different than what you hear 1,000 years later. I heard someone talk about this. I'm going to believe it. No, they saw the risen Lord, and it changed their lives. It went all over the place, and they're being killed in the process. And that the disciples would hear about other disciples being killed, and yet they continued on. So I asked these people who come up with these theories, I say, can you please explain how all this works together inside of your theory? And they can't. Okay.
And that's something I've told other people. I said, well, get the argument off of you. I heard a guy named Matt Slater say, well, get them to prove their theory. And just watch the wheels turn and the wheels spin and all that. One last one, and I'll get off the phone.
That's all right.
So when you have Jesus, making statements about I am and all that, and all these prophecies being lined up, and about the 500 witnesses, something else that somebody else said, I think it might have been Lee Strobel, and he said, well, or him or somebody else said, well, for all those witnesses, for everything that they saw, like you said, there are no scriptures, there are no documents that say that there were any detractors, anybody of that time saying that, no, all those guys were hallucinating, they were talking falsehoods. You have no documents, to my knowledge, to what I'm hearing. you have no documents refuting what the eyewitnesses saw. Is that true?
Right. There's nothing that is counter evidential. Nothing's there. If anything, let's just say that you find a document that said that the followers of this Jesus person were mistaken because he didn't rise from the dead. Let's just say you find something like that. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means you have a critic, and it means the ancient document talks about Jesus. So there he was. He was real. Of course, you're going to have people on both sides. So that just corroborates that he really was there. Now let's explain everything. So even when critics cite things about Jesus later on or whatever, it means that they're referring to a historical figure. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. Very informational. I appreciate it. And God bless.
Amen. Always appreciate you calling, Jamal. God bless, buddy. All right. Let's get to Dave from North Carolina. Dave, welcome. You're on the air.
Hello, Mr. Slick. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. What do you got?
So, I guess it's two parts to the question, but what is the origin of the Apocrypha? And I've heard that it wasn't added, I guess, to the Bible because it was not God inspired.
That's correct.
So I'm guessing, like, where does it originate from?
Well, it was written during the time of Malachi, around 400 BC, and between that and the time of Christ. And I don't know what individuals or groups wrote the apocryphal books. So that's just an interesting question. Hey, I wonder who, if they know any individuals who did it or what. But they are valuable historical documents. But they contain a few errors. And the Jews knew about them, and the Jews never considered them to be scripture. So in the Old Testament, there are many places, like over 20, that quote or reference other books besides the scriptures. The book of the War of the Lords, for example. And so it doesn't mean that that book is inspired. It's a reference, because an inspired writer could go to a book, an ancient book that they had in their ancient library, and find a reference to something and then quote it. And he's quoting it, and that's it. Just like Paul did of Epimenides and Menander and Erastus. So these are pagan philosophers. So nevertheless, the apocryphal books were written during the intertestamental period between roughly 400 BC and the time of Christ. But they were not considered to be scripture. But the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church basically added them in the 1500s. Okay, 1546 for the Catholic Church. I don't know when it happened for the Eastern Orthodox Church. And there's a reason for that. But anyway, okay.
Okay. Is there an article or anything? Because I don't want to take up a lot of time.
That's all right.
But, is there an article or a book or something you would recommend to look into more about that?
Sure. If you want, you can go to my website, carm.org, carm.org, and just type in the word in the search engine. Just type in Apocrypha. I just did that. And here's an article I wrote in 2009, Reasons Why the Apocrypha Does Not Belong in the Bible. And the Apocrypha is a scripture. Errors in the Apocrypha. Early church fathers on the Apocrypha. Apocryphal books, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, Russian, Coptic. And so, are there lost books of the Bible? Is another article. What is the Catholic Bible? How many books are in the Bible? And so you can see there's lots of articles that address this issue. And you can go check them out. Okay.
Okay. Is there anybody in line right now, or can I ask one more question?
There's nobody else waiting. So, hey, it's just you and me right now. And we got a break coming up pretty soon. But what do you got?
Sorry. So what, I guess, what stance do Catholics take to, I can't think of how to word it, to, I guess, approve the Apocrypha being added to the Bible? How do they defend it if it's if it goes against, like the books in the New Testament?
They added it in 1546 officially to the canon of Scripture. And though Catholics today will say it's not true, it was never taken out. It was never added. It was always in. And that's not true. They don't know their history. So we got a break coming up, but I don't know the method that they did it to get it in, but I believe they did it in response to the Reformation because the Roman Catholic Church is apostate and they wanted books to support their false doctrines, and that's why they included the Apocrypha. So hold on, man. We'll be right back after these messages. Please stay tuned. If you want to give me a call, 877-207-2276.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba, please be done. Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken.
The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles, but God is there every time. Your truth for today.
My name is Judy Teeter, and I'm the mother of 3 boys. My youngest, Joe, was a great kid. He loved sports, music, and his youth group. One day, Joe asked me to drive him to an after-school event, which was about a mile from our home. I was driving through a green light when a car in cross traffic ran a red light and drove right into the side of our car, killing Joe. The driver was talking on her phone, so she never even saw the red light. She was so absorbed in her phone call. Before the crash, I didn't realize just talking on a cell phone while driving was so dangerous. Now it's something I think about every day. According to the National Safety Council, about 1 in 4 car crashes involves a cell phone. Hands-free is no safer. When you're behind the wheel, put away your phone. For Joe and for the thousands of needless deaths every year. Remember, there is no safe way to talk on a cell phone while driving. Find out more at nsc.org/callskill.
Want to get out of just about anything and look like an earth-saving hero? Just use the environment excuse. High school reunion? Ooh, sorry, can't. Planetary obligations. Unfortunate bridesmaid's dress. Unfortunately, you promised the climate you'd buy more vintage. Chauffeuring teens? Yeah, the earth really needs them to hoof it. That's right, the environment is always the best excuse. So go ahead, ask your bae to dim all the lights because carbon emissions. Tell your dad-botted dad to eat more plants for the planet, obviously. Kindly tell the kids to stop asking for a new phone. I mean, e-waste, right? Find your out and opt in to cutting carbon. Just visit theenvironmentexcuse.org. A public...
It's Matt Slick Live, taking your calls at 877-207-2276. Here's Matt Slick.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the show, and we'll get back to Dave here in a sec. As soon as he's activated, there we go. Dave, welcome back on the air.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I do. I hear you, man. All right. So what do you got, man? What's up? Where were we?
So can you explain that last part? Because you was kind of cutting out with the commercial coming in.
What was the last part?
About, we're talking about the Apocrypha and the stance that Catholics use to try and support the, I guess, teaching from the Apocrypha.
Yes. The Roman Catholic Church, I'm going to just say this publicly, is not a Christian church. It is an apostate false church, and it teaches a false gospel and promotes idolatry. And it's been doing this for centuries. And in its apostasy, where it has mingled the wisdom of man in its sacred tradition with the inspired word, whenever that is done, and everyone has the guts and the gall to mix them, it's always going to be the case that their traditions supersede the word of God. It's always going to be that case because they dare combine them. And so to do that is an arrogance and a foolishness. The Roman Catholic Church does this and promotes this. And so in its arrogance and in its pride and in its apostasy, what it has done is authenticated certain aspects of the apocryphal books. And they did this in order, in my opinion, to bolster their false doctrines. They wanted to have scripture that supported their position. And so they added the apocryphal books. And the apocryphal books were not recognized by Jesus. They were rejected by the Jewish community, and they are not to be considered inspired. They have errors in them, and they're not to be trusted for that level of inspiration. Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, are they worth reading as far as for any kind of historical context or anything, or is it better just to avoid it altogether?
Sure. You know, when for any kind of historical context, that is a wide open statement. So you have to say yes, because you can read them and just see what they say. But there are historical inaccuracies in there. I know of one at least, and I think it has to do with Nebuchadnezzar. I'm looking through my notes to see where it is. But look at an article I wrote back in 2009. So anyway, I do have here, let's see on this one, that it says it commands the use of magic in Tobit. Forgiveness of sins is by almsgiving in Tobit, and offering of money for the sins of the dead in Second Maccabees. And this is stuff that the Roman Catholic Church was kind of getting into and doing. So of course they're going to include that, or try to include that in the Bible. It's a false religion. Okay. Yeah, here I'm looking at some more stuff.
All right, well, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you short, but I got to get off of here. But I'll check out your articles on CARM and everything. So thank you for your help, and God bless you, sir.
You too, man. God bless. All right, looking at one of the articles I've written, this one was written back in 2018, Errors in the Apocrypha, Wrong Historical Facts, Judith 1:5. It says, now in the 12th year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Assyrians, who reigned in Nineveh, the great city. That was wrong. Baruch 6:2, when you came to Babylon, you shall be there many days and for a long time, even to 7 generations. And for that, I'll bring you away thence with peace. So it was such for 70 years, and it didn't happen. So there's just, or let's see, look at, and yeah, there's some other issues here as well. But anyway, you can go check that. You can do a lot of research on that as well. And I suggest that for people to do that. Let's get to Eileen from Toledo. Welcome. You're on the air.
Hi, it's Arlene.
Oh, Arlene.
But anyway,
okay.
hi
All right,
there.
sorry.
Yes.
It's all right. It's all right.
No, everybody gets it wrong.
It's okay.
I was wondering. I heard, I heard you say that the New American Standard Bible is probably the most accurate translation.
It's one of.
I have read it. I have read it years and years ago, back in the 1970s and whatnot. I had one. However, I've noticed there are, of that translation, there are newer editions, and I wanted to get another New American Standard, but I didn't know if the newest one that was out was the best one to get, because, you know, sometimes they kind of go along with the culture and some of these, how they translate. So would the newest one be the best one, or would a previous translation of it, a previous year?
Yeah, the one I use is the NASB 1995 edition. They have an edition of 2020, which I've really not gone through a lot. So I haven't been able to really examine it. I'm just so used to the 95 that I just, I'm sticking with it, and I may move over to the 2020. But that's what I use, and I've been using it for a long time. So, you know, and it's a good translation. It's not perfect, but it's good, and it's more accurate to the Greek. Okay.
Okay. So you're using the 95, but you're saying maybe the 2020, you said?
Yes, I just haven't done a comparison
Might be
yet.
just as...
Yeah.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay, because I was holding off on which year to buy.
Yeah,
And I was just trying to...
I had someone tell me that just what your concern was, that it's a little bit more modified for contemporary usage. And And someone told me that they compromised a couple places. And I said, I got to figure that out. But I've never gone in and looked. So I know the 95 is really steady. So that's where I'm at right now. So, and then, but you know, the 95 isn't perfect. It could be that the 20 fixes a few problems that 95 didn't quite get right, because you can have emphasis of something. Now, I prefer literalness. So it might say for all of man, pas anthropoi. And it you know, so it might say all of men when it means all mankind, but they might say now in the English might say all people. Well, I get it. I get why they're saying something like that, but I prefer that they stick with the original, because I've learned that the pattern of original usage of words means something. And so I say stick to it as literal as possible in the English and study it that way, and you'll learn things you won't learn any other way. Okay.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome so much. All right. You got any other questions?
Bye. No, that's all I had.
All right. Well, God bless.
You did well.
All right.
God bless you also.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Right. All right. Well, we have nobody waiting right now. So I think what I am going to do is go over to the radio questions folder and see what this was. See what this one. Who was King James? He was a king named James in England. That's about all I know of him. See, pretty. Notice how incredibly intelligent that response was. Who was King James? I do that with my wife, you know, and she might ask a question like, well, who was King James? And I'll look at her. She go, don't do it. Don't do it. And I'll just look at her with this facial expression. She goes, you're going to say, she goes, don't tell me he's just a king. I said, he's a king named James. She goes, oh. So, you know, then she rubbed her forehead again. You know, she's having lots of headaches around me. I've noticed that. She rubbed her forehead a lot. And it's like, you know, maybe she needs some meds. I don't know. Something's up. So, here, let's see. Ooh, that's interesting. Biblical thing of aliens. Let's see. You know, I'm just looking through some of the radio questions. We got a few, but a lot of them are long. And like this one, reports a man saying Jesus after the murder. Okay, I don't know. Does God love equally? I already answered that. The answer is no. He does not love everybody equally. People are surprised by that. They'll say, no, he does. He loves everybody equally. No, he doesn't. See, in Psalm 5:5 and Psalm 11:5, I'm going to read this to you. Okay, this is God. So Psalm 5:5, all right? The boastful shall not stand before your eyes. You hate all who do iniquity. And then in Psalm 11:5, the Lord tests the righteous and the wicked, and the one who loves violence, his soul hates. So there are biblical references where God hates people. And people are so shocked by that. That can't be true, because, you know, they have the image of Jesus, who's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Caucasian surfer dude dressed in a woman's nightgown, dressed to kill. And what he's doing is he's waiting for you to give him permission to let him into your heart. And of course, that's just not going to work. You know, it's not going to work. It's just not the Jesus of the Bible. So Jesus did get upset with people. He called people whitewashed sepulchres. You're your father, the devil. I wouldn't call that exactly loving them. I'd call that judging them. So, no, Jesus doesn't love everybody equally. Okay. Or God doesn't either. All right, let me see. Get down to this. Matt, can you read this on air? If he so chooses. I'm writing. Oh, okay, never mind. Let's try this. I suppose a left and right thing is interesting symbolism. Never thought about that before. Left and right, probably in reference to the Day of Judgment, because it doesn't say. I'm going to read down to the email here. Yes, okay, it is. So the criminals crucified on Jesus mocked him. The one on the right is saved, and the one on the left is not. On the Day of Judgment, the people on the right side, they are going to heaven, and the ones on the left are going to hell. It's a lot of people don't know that. Okay, so I'm going to write an article on this. What is the significance of right and left in the Bible? So also, the disciples, when they were at the beginning of the ministry of Jesus, he went to the Sea of Galilee, and the disciples were casting their nets. They'd been out there all day. They hadn't caught anything. And Jesus says, cast your net on the right side of the boat, not the left, the right side. And they did, and they caught fish, which is just interesting. Also, check this out. If you go to John 21, and it says, and in John 21, and it says here, I'm scanning through it. Got out of the boat that night, they caught nothing. And in verse 4, but when the day was now breaking, Jesus stood on the beach. Yet the disciples did not know who it was. And Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? They answered, no. He said, cast a net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll find a catch. They're right there. So, and they did. And they caught so many that they couldn't hardly bring it in. It was just so many. But it's interesting. It gives a number, 153. 153 fish were caught. Why? We got 15 seconds. I'm going to rush through this. Because the fish represent the people and none were lost. This is an indirect means of eternal security and demonstrating it, that none are lost whom God says to catch. And 153 individuals received the blessing from Jesus in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all combined. Isn't that interesting? May the Lord bless you by his grace. Back on here tomorrow, and hopefully we'll talk to you then. Have a great evening, everyone. God bless. Okay, Charlie, give me a test.
Okay, got audio here.
All right, got it. All right, everybody, there you go. Okay. Pretty exciting.
Matt, Scott, in Clubhouse.
All right, Scott, go for it. You there, Scott?
He's blinking his mic. I think that means that somebody's walked up at work and he can't talk.
Okay, probably. Or you could type it in if you want. And he says, yeah, that's right. All right. Well, then he shouldn't be on the phone or doing this. Even though, how could you not? I mean, come on, you know.
And Matt, David is up.
All right. David's up.
That
Oh, there you are.
153
Now I see.
Thank you.
Look,
153 fish explanation. Wow, that blows me away.
No. 153 fish were caught in the net, and let's see, 153 fish. See if I have an article going through that.
I always wondered why it was so specific.
Okay, so if you go to the LSB, that's right. Go here. I actually beat Charlie to it. I beat Charlie to it. Oh, I'm going to use that against him. I got an article in there. So there you go, Charlie. He's always beat me with links. I just got him.
Well, which article was it?
The 153 fish. There's an article on Carm.
What's it called?
Why is 153 fish mentioned in John 21:11?
Oh.
One more thing.
I thought you meant the other article you have. What about the 153 fish and the perseverance of the saints? That's a whole nother article.
Yeah.
I'll put that link in just to say on that too. But you did beat me on the first one. I was going to post the other one.
All right.
Hey, one more thing, Matt.
Sure.
We talked about it at church yesterday. We pray for leadership of our country and everything, but also David prayed imprecatory prayers.
Yep.
And I'm at the point, and I asked my pastor if I could pray an imprecatory prayer against this administration that put transgender visibility day on the same day as Easter. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I have to pray an imprecatory prayer. Break the teeth of my enemy, wicked princes.
Yep.
Okay. That's okay. Then
I would say yes. I'd say if that's what you think you got to do. Yeah, I would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but when I do imprecatory prayer, I say, Lord, primarily I want them to be saved. But Lord, according to your will, I ask that you would deal with them according to their sin, to bring them to the faith and or to stop them from promoting unrighteousness before the people of God. And
that's exactly what my pastor said yesterday, almost verbatim.
Ooh, good.
That's how I do it as well.
Good.
Okay. So we're all on the same page. Maybe we're reading the same book.
Maybe.
Maybe. It would seem like it, huh?
Sometimes it certainly does.
Yeah. So, anyways, I just took a 10-minute break, so I don't have to keep popping in and out like that. So yeah, I was just wondering if you got my message that had the flights on it, like the whole month of April and May, the options.
Oh yeah, I got several things I got to work on, but tonight. But yeah, that's one of the things I got to do. I also have to speak in 3 weeks. I got to work on that. Contact them. Other stuff. Yep.
Where are you going to speak in 3 weeks?
I forgot the name of the place, but it's in a neighboring city.
Oh, nearby you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, that's great. All right. Well, yeah, that's all I was wondering, and of course, no rush or anything. And
okay.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when I'm at work because I want to listen to the show, and this guy called in today, something really interesting, but I lost it, so I'll have to rewatch it when you post it later.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
And Matt,
Yeah.
my Matt's up.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, the dogs are barking. So I did a little research on the transgender thing,
Yeah.
and in 2009, they instituted that on March the 31st, and it fell on Easter in March of 2013, and this is the second time it fell on Easter, but it was implemented in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know if Obama made a big thing about it in 2013, but I know Biden has.
Okay, let's see. When was the Transsexual Awareness Day founded? When? March 31st, 2009. Interesting. Okay, good. Okay. So it just fell on that day. Okay. Yeah. Why would they do that? They know it's going to fall on on Resurrection Day. They know it's going to happen. And they did it anyway. Slime bags.
Well, besides that, Matt, he announced it on Good Friday. I mean, what an announcement to make on Good Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, the National Guard members' children making Easter eggs were not allowed to put an image, a religious image on any of the Easter eggs.
Yep.
You know, good grief.
Yeah, our country is anti-Christian now, not post, anti.
Yeah,
Hey, Fred, how you doing? Yeah.
Chris Ray, Chris is up, which he's probably wanting to know where to mail that big check. And then Fred Beal is in. And
All right.
Fred Beal is in StreamYard. So
Yep.
who do you want to go first?
Let's get to Christoph in this, and then we'll see what Fred's got to say.
I don't have anything to say. I'm just hanging out.
Okay.
Chris, I think he said you were first.
Yeah, I was just going to add that Biden is the first president to call out that day as a special presidential day. So, like Obama and Trump did not, even though it got started 14 years ago.
Okay.
So that's why it was a scandal, is because Biden is the first one to call it out.
He's such a. Yeah, we need imprecatory prayers. Our country needs to be dealt with from the top down, and spiritually speaking, heads need to roll. There needs to be some changes, and I just wish that God would do what He would do and raise up people who will clean house in the Senate and the Congress. Just raise them up. I'd like to see Candace Owen become president.
Me too.
She's not perfect. But
Have you seen Dusty Devers, Matt? Have you read anything about this guy?
is that like a baseball name?
No. So Dusty Devers is a pastor in Oklahoma. He's a Reformed pastor.
Oh, I know Dusty.
Oh, okay, yeah. He ran for state senate in Oklahoma and got elected. And I mean, he's all about like Christ is king, and he's doing he's putting forth bills to ban abortion altogether. in
Abolition
Oklahoma.
bills.
Abolition
Yeah.
bills, yeah.
He's working with Apologia and those guys as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you should check out Dusty Devers, Matt. I think you'd be really excited about that dude.
Well, good. We need more people like him in. Absolutely. Good. Okay.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately too, and everything that's been said, what you just said, Matt, and everyone else, pretty much the same. It's just a growing weariness of this injustice, and it just really gets to you in your heart, and you got to really, trust in the Lord on that, and really, when your theology comes into play there with God's sovereignty. But I think about this a lot, and I pray those prayers exactly like that all the time, that God would clean house, basically, like you just said, and put good people in there, people that would, make a change in our government and stuff. And, and I wonder things like, I have a record, I have a felony on my record, but from what I've come to understand lately, apparently if you get elected in the office, you can have a record because it's the people choosing you. Is that correct?
I don't know. I assume so.
Because I'd like to maybe, run for my city council or something
Sure.
like that, do something.
Absolutely. Do it.
I would like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of my last name, I figured I should just go straight and run for the presidency. I mean, President Slick, I think I'd be a perfect politician. Should I be honest? Yeah.
No, that's not the perfect politician, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that's the opposite of a politician.
Yeah, they'd just call you a typical politician.
Hey, Matt, Seth
Yeah.
just came into StreamYard. He tried to call in, and he got at the end of the show, and so he couldn't call in and ask a question. So he actually came in to StreamYard to talk to you.
Okay. What do you got there, Seth?
He's muted.
You gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, so Fred may have beat me to the punch, but I was here to talk a little bit about theonomy because I heard that you are not a fan of it, and I wanted to interact a little bit. Are you there?
You there, Matt?
Oh, I got muted. I don't know what happened. I got muted. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard you. Yeah.
Okay, so how about, could I just present a summary of what theonomy is and what theonomists believe, and I can just hear what you have to say about it? Would that work?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So I've read a fair bit of Greg Bahnsen and Rushdoony, and basically their approach is all of God's law applies to everyone unless God says it doesn't. So in the Old Testament, you have the civil, ceremonial, and moral law. And obviously it all applies to Israel, but theonomists teach that it also applies to nations outside of Israel. So Sodom and Gomorrah were judged for homosexuality because the law applies to them, not just Israel. And then in Matthew 5 in the New Testament, Jesus says that he who relaxes the least of these commandments, it will be least in the kingdom of heaven. So whatever he means by fulfill, it doesn't mean we're going to get rid of the law. At the same time, Jesus himself puts some of the laws out of gear. So I think it's in Mark 9 where he specifically puts out of gear the food laws. He says that I'm trying to remember exactly how he phrases it. I don't quite remember, but he declares, Mark says he declared all foods clean. So I guess I'm wondering what your objections to it are.
The application and how it's to be done is not. I have not read too much on it. I don't know how it would be implemented. So first of all, in the Old Testament, I know that there's a division between the state of the sons of Israel and those applied to all nations. If you were to go look at the issues applied to all nations, I think that's where it'd be interesting to find out, because obviously murder should be punishable, and that applies to all nations. Adultery should also. I have no problems with things like that. That's not a problem.
Okay.
I can see why you want a lot of these laws in place. I think it's good. Abortion should be outlawed, and for the most part, unless there's an extremely rare circumstance, where both will be killed, and we can talk about it. But murder should be taken care of. Kidnapping, adultery. Adultery isn't about killing them, but it's a serious thing. So I don't have a problem with a lot of those laws being implemented. I'm just curious. The warning I have, or the concern I have, is if you want to mess something up, you just need two things: people and time. And so I have been in situations within Christianity, for example, where this is just a small example. I was in the PCA, accepted as a pastor in the PCA, and got kicked out of my pastorate because I affirmed the charismatic gifts. I wasn't speaking in tongues. I just said exegetically, I'm not convinced of their cessation. Well, they let someone in with that view in the PCA with the exact same view I did, which is why I joined the PCA.
Okay.
And then I found out, well, that was a mistake. So what they did was the people in charge became legalistic about stuff. And next thing you know, I don't have a pastorate.
Right.
But you guys let them in. Instead of grace, it was legalism. And I got another story like this with someone else that made a magazine inside the PCA and everything. My name was in it, drug through the mud. So I'm just saying, it's just, there are things like this, and it scares me. Because if we get a bunch of religious guys, so to speak, we're talking the extreme thing. A bunch of religious guys who are at the top, who sit on their thrones and they have their robes and they're saying theonomic truths, that scares the crap out of me. But, I don't think that's the extreme that theonomists want either. I don't think that's for advocating for.
Can I throw something in there?
Sure, go ahead, Fred.
I think the question's coming because last week, the Carm Facebook page posted an article about Christian Reconstructionism and why Christian Reconstructionism is wrong and stuff like that. And I don't know if that came from you or if it was someone that runs your stuff, but it kind of started a long thread. So I think that's where the question's kind of coming from. So do you make a distinction, though, between theonomy and between Reconstructionism as a whole?
Now I can't tell you because I wrote it so long ago. When did I write that? Back in 2009. So I had to refresh my memory in order to find out more about it. Reconstructionists maintain a strong belief in the Bible, generally post-millennial, believe that through the preaching, teaching of the gospel, the world will be converted. They advocate removing prisons, replacing them with the practice of restoration. The damage is done. I like that idea. Christians are new chosen people of God, replacing national Israel. I don't agree with that, but I get the point. Other religious systems would strongly be resisted. Opposes evolution. That's just fine. It's just been a long time, so I have to go through and review.
I might be able to help here a little bit. So basically, theonomy is one aspect of Christian Reconstruction. Typically, the Reconstructionists were presuppositional apologetics, covenant theology, Calvinist soteriology, pretty much all Presbyterian. They're basically five, and then theonomic, and postmillennial. So it's theonomy is not equivalent to Christian Reconstructionism. It's one aspect of the belief system of, like, and almost all Reconstructionists are partial preterists too. I think Rushdoony actually wasn't, but I'd have to check on that.
No, yeah, Rushdoony was not.
Go ahead.
No, you're right, Seth. Rushdoony was an idealist. He was not a partial preterist, but most are.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should revisit that article then.
So it sounds like you really don't have a problem with the principle. In principle, you're just concerned, well, what if people who are kind of crazy get into power and start doing bonkers things?
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. And how do you translate some of the Old Testament laws of different circumstances into stuff in the present? And just because I'm concerned doesn't mean to reject it. It's just like, well, I'm going to be done. What are the safeguards? Because we're going to be, if it would be done, it'd be done in the name of Jesus.
Right.
That's a super critical thing, and it needs to be done very, very carefully and with a lot of wisdom. And I think there would need to be a large body of believers who, so to speak, run the overall whatever system that cannot go too far to have restrictive boundaries, and that they have to be in good standing of their churches. And it'd be difficult for them to get there. And then these guys and girls,
I agree with that. I think that would be a good system. And one of the aspects of a theonomic society, I think, would be limited, like extremely limited government. Kind of like what the founding fathers had originally. And I do agree that I think it would be good for there to be a rule in place where you had to be in good standing with your local church. I mean, you had to be part of a local church. You had to be in good standing with it, and then and only then can you run for civil office. That's actually pretty similar to with the original state constitutions. I recently read through the original state constitutions, and all except one or two required a belief in Protestantism or Trinitarianism or something, the infallibility of the Old and New Testament. They required that kind of thing in order for somebody to run for any public office whatsoever, whether it was governor or city council member or whatever. And if we had that in place, I think that a lot of your fears would be assuaged. And as far as like how we would apply some of the Old Testament laws, I remember Bonson mentioning at one point there's the law. I think it's Deuteronomy 22:6. It's right next to the law about women not wearing men's clothing. There's a law about if you find I'd have to look it up again. I think it's if you find a bird in a bird's nest, you're prohibited from destroying the nest. And I remember him saying, I have absolutely no idea how we would apply that today, but it's my duty as a Christian to study and find out. So
I do. You're cutting a tree down. You're cutting a tree down in your yard to make way for something. There's a bird nest in there. You can't do it now.
Well, okay, and maybe that's the right answer. I'm simply saying that even the Reconstructionists themselves said, "Hey, we don't have all the answers to every specific question, but we have a consistent biblical principle that can be applied." Something like, do not murder or laws against abortion.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty obvious how you'd apply that today. So there are some laws that are really obvious, and anyone who has read the Bible and actually believes it would know how to apply it. And then there are other laws that are a little more obscure and would require a lot more time and energy to explore.
Yeah. And the typical application is in the Old Testament, the law about guardrails on your rooftop, right? So in the Old Testament, you were required to have a guardrail on your rooftop, and the reason is because people used to hang out on rooftops and they used to drink up there, and the Bible presupposes that you ought to defend human life, that you ought to preserve human life, which means you ought to put barriers in place so someone doesn't fall off your roof and die. Like that's part of your responsibility in society, and if you given the law of God. And the question is, should we then require everyone to have guardrails on their roofs today? And of course, the answer is no, because we don't hang out on our roofs today. But what would be a logical application? Well, we should require everyone to have fences around their pools, as an example. And if you don't have a fence around your pool, and a 4-year-old girl walks by and drowns in your pool, you should be held liable because you didn't take the necessary precautions to protect human life. And then also, I just want to say, we as Reconstructionists, we're Kuyperian. So we don't believe in a church state. We don't believe that we think there's a distinction between the institution of the church and the institution of the state. So I think when you actually look at it from a Kuyperian perspective, I think that solves some of your concerns about this massive church state like Rome kind of taking over. That, I think that's kind of where you're coming from that.
Yeah, because the church state separation thing worked for a while until the church started saying what the state could do by being excommunicated in Roman Catholicism, and then the state became a tool in some countries in Europe. It's just a concern. I mean, I was reading just now, you shall not plow an ox with a donkey together. You shall not have material mixed, wool of linen. You shall make tassels in the corners of your garments. So, a lot of these, it's like we know not to apply them today because they're just for national Israel.
Yeah.
But, the idea of, I love the idea of get rid of prisons. And you do, you take somebody who's committed a crime, let's say he murdered somebody. Well, that means he's indentured to that family for the rest of his life in an area where he's going to work, and his wages are heavily garnished, and they provide for that family the rest of his life. That kind of a thing,
Matt, you sound like a theonomist.
Well, actually, Andrew Golumbos is the one who came up with that kind of stuff that I'd heard, first of all, back in the 70s. And so I've thought about that, but it's a long story. But yeah, what does prison do? It's a breeding ground for crime.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
And it's not really doing anything. And the Bible says, big restitution. I think with technology now, they could easily just put an ankle bracelet, whatever it is, and say, go to work. And half of what you make goes to this family. You got drunk and you killed somebody. Well, now you got 20 years. That's your sentence. 20 years of your wages is now going to them, for half or whatever it is.
I think the crime is either so heinous that it's worthy to be punished by state execution, or the family needs to be repaid. What we have today is we have basically legalized kidnapping with the prison system. So we kidnap someone, we put them in a cage, and in prison they learn how to be better criminals. They leave it's basically criminal it's criminal university. And when we do find people, that money goes to the state. It doesn't even go to the victimized party. So it's a ridiculous system. If we just applied biblical law and biblical principles, we would actually have justice in this country, which we don't have right now.
I agree.
To me, it sounds like Matt is, theonomically curious, or maybe has a theonomic orientation.
Am I a closet theonomist?
He's a little afraid to.
Once you come over to the post-millennial side, then you're a full-blown Reconstruction.
No, that won't happen. That won't happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
No, it won't happen. Sorry, I know I have strong arguments against post-mill that I just don't see this happening ever. I'm a pessimist. Things aren't going to get better. And Jesus says in Matthew 24:22, those days be not cut short, no flesh would be left. And
that's about the destruction of Jerusalem, bro. We need to do a Bible study.
Yeah, that's what 78.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we should, because he's talking eschatologically, and it's not just It's not just what's it called? Full preterism either. So if you go full preterism, that's heresy.
We're not full preterists.
I'm a partial preterist,
guys.
But it says after the tribulation of those days. That's what it says. The Son of Man will be cleft. That's not 70. That's not Jerusalem in 70 AD. That's not how he returned.
John says in the book of Revelation that he was a fellow participant in the tribulation. So whatever the tribulation was, it was happening in the first century.
Yeah, but you can have different kinds of tribulations of what's going on. That's the Greek word thlipsis. And so how does it occur? And there's a reference to something called the Great Tribulation. That's different. And so the Great Tribulation is a prophecy that certain things will happen concomitant with it and coming back in the clouds. And you can see that in Matthew 24. And I don't think Post-Mill answered that. Plus, there's the issue of this age and the age to come. Have you guys studied that?
Yes.
Depends on what problem you're talking about.
This age and the age to come, Jesus and Paul divides history into two eras. This age and the age to come. What happens at the end of this age? The resurrection occurs, the new judgment, or the judgment of the wicked occurs, the rapture occurs, new heavens and new earth are made. And the first thing that occurs before that, as far as what men and women take, or good and bad taken, the first ones taken are the wicked. And they're taken out of God's kingdom, which is occurring now, and they're judged. And then the new heavens and new earth are made. So if it's Post-Mill is true, that means everything's going so well that there doesn't have to be this reality doesn't have to happen. You have to take the wicked out from among the good and take them to a place of destruction. That's what Jesus says. As it was the days of Noah, so shall be the days that come in the Son of Man. And he says, 2 men in the field, one is taken, one is left. That's the wicked taken, and they're taken to a place of judgment. Well, Jesus says in Matthew 13 that the judgment occurs at the end of the age, but what precedes that judgment is the taking of the wicked to judgment. Well, if everything's getting better, then why is it that, this is a question, I'm probably misunderstanding Post-Mill, if everything's getting so much better, why is it that Jesus is saying those days be not cut short, no flesh would be left, which I don't believe is just Jerusalem, no flesh. And the signs in the heaven and all this is showing up. And the wicked are taken. They're taken to a place of destruction, which I think is Armageddon. And the new heavens and new earth are made. I just don't see that as being Post-Mill. That's why I'll never convert to Post-Mill, because these have to be addressed.
So at the beginning and the end of the passage, Jesus says that these things will take place within this generation, and the generation only lasts 40 years. So whatever's going on in between those two statements, the moon turning to blood and all the rest, it's highly symbolic language. But whatever's going on happened within 40 years of Jesus uttering that statement.
True.
Generally speaking, but you can understand this to be different too. This generation will not pass away. So someone born in the year 1900 theoretically could still be alive right now. I mean, the oldest guy I've ever heard of is 127. But the generation that's born, that could be, living through World War II, Korea, Vietnam, even at the turn of the century. So they won't pass away. Does it mean 40 years is what's going to pass away, or those who are alive? Furthermore, if you're a partial preterist, then it could apply to both then and now, and the return of Christ this generation.
So I don't know if I don't know if Seth agrees with this, but my perspective is that there are two ages, and that the old age is the Jewish age, and that starts at the fall of man, right, when God starts implementing a restorative system, and it ends in 70 AD with the destruction of the temple. So that's the Jewish age. And then I think we have a Christian age, which starts at the death, resurrection of Christ and ends at the second coming, or the eternal state at that point. So that's how I see it. And I think the scriptures teach that. If you go to 1 Corinthians 10, right, when Paul's talking about the Exodus and how our fathers drank from the same rock that we drink from, they drank the same spiritual drink, the same spiritual food, and that rock is Christ. And then Paul says, all these things were written down as examples for us, but they were written down for our instruction. And then Paul says this, upon whom the end of the ages has come. So Paul says, we are living in the end of the age. The end of what age? The end of the Jewish age, right?
Yeah, it also reminds me, that's more or less my perspective too. And one of my favorite verses to go to is Hebrews 1, where he says that in these last days, Jesus was incarnated. So whatever the last days were, Jesus was living in them.
Except it says we've been in the last days since Pentecost. You go to Acts chapter 2. So if you say that last days is only a narrow period of time, it's a problem because in these last days, the Holy Spirit comes and all that kind of stuff. But check this out.
But
Here's
the Acts 2 is written in the last days before the destruction of the temple.
Yeah, in these last days. And we have been in the last days. So there are two ages. This age, the age to come. Blasphemy is not forgiven in this age or the age to come. In the age to come, we receive eternal life. We have it now, but it's the full manifestation of it. There's no marriage in the age to come. And marrying
I would say that the age to come, it doesn't have to refer to, the post-millennial golden age. I think it can refer to the eternal state as well. That's,
Yes.
That's my view.
So, but here's the thing. In this age, there's the present evil age. The evil is present. Rulers of this age, the God of this world, or literally this age, the wisdom of this age. So there's two ages. Well, check this out.
Do you think Satan's bound right now or no?
I think he might have been let loose because in Matthew 12:22-32, he had to be bound.
Right. So but he was bound. Okay.
Yeah, he's bound. That's why I'm all millennial. That's sort of the thing. But look at this. At the end of this age, the wicked are gathered. The judgment of the wicked occurs. The elect are gathered. The harvest occurs. Jesus returns. The rapture occurs, which I hope you guys believe in the rapture. And then
depends what you mean.
You
by
have
that.
to believe in the rapture. You have to believe it. If you don't believe in the rapture,
I believe in the catching up of the saints to meet the Lord as He descends at the second coming, but I don't believe in a secret rapture.
Yeah,
I didn't say secret rapture. I said rapture.
Well,
now that's the fact. The question is, when's it going to occur? It's going to occur at the end of the age. See, look, the last day is the judgment of the wicked, which is also the day of the Lord. And the elect are gathered on the end of this age. Well, the resurrection occurs on the last day, which is the day of the Lord, which occurs at the last trumpet. Jesus returned at the end of this age, the day of the Lord, which is also after the tribulation. Anyway, the thing, and the rapture occurs. I'm post-trib rapture. We're going through it all. And I believe that my opinion is that when Jesus is coming back, things are so bad that he's going to we will destroy ourselves. See, let me give you my view. It's my view, whatever. I'm going to write an article on it. When God said to Adam, the day that you eat of it, you're going to die, he's speaking to Adam. I suspect he's speaking to all of us. The wages of sin is death, Romans 6:23. Those days be not cut short. No flesh should be left. The plagues come out of heaven. The third of mankind is destroyed. That we're going to have our way to destroy ourselves. And that at the end of the age, it's going to be a gigantic celestial, I told you so, when Jesus goes in and stops us from self-destruction. And that the wicked are going to be taken out of his kingdom, because we're in the kingdom now. And then the good will be taken, and the new heavens and new earth occur. But when he comes back for this, the first ones removed are the wicked. And when that occurs, the first one's taken of the wicked, the new heavens and new earth occur, but the rapture occurs at that time. I don't know exactly which comes first, but the same hour, the same day. Okay.
Well, I'll put a link to those two articles in there in the private chat. If they're in here with us, they can copy and paste that and look at it at their leisure with the charts you're using and stuff. Those last two articles I posted. You can take your time.
In fact, so I did this. I did a really serious study on this. And at the end of the age, the wicked are gathered, the judgment occurs, the elect are gathered, the harvest occurs, Jesus returns. And that's also the last day, which is a judgment of the wicked, which is the end of the age, which is the day of the Lord. When you look at all of these, at least in my opinion, everything has to happen at the end. So Jesus' return occurs at the end of the age, which is the day of the Lord, which is after the tribulation. The judgment of the wicked occurs at the end of the age, which is the day of the Lord, which is the last day. The rapture occurs on the day of the Lord after the tribulation. Resurrection occurs on the day of the Lord. So I don't see any place where post-mill says it's getting better and better.
Well, it's because what you do with like the Psalms, where it talks about all the kings, all the nations bowing before the Lord and kissing the Son, and Isaiah chapter 2, where it talks about all the nations flowing to Mount Zion, and accepting the law of God and applying it and all this stuff, and so much so that we're not going to fight wars anymore. And you said that you believe that that Christ is reigning now, right? He's already established the Davidic kingdom, right? The kingdom's already been established.
Yep.
So Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 quotes Psalm 110. And what does he say? He says, he applies Psalm 110 to Jesus Christ, and he says, sit at my right hand until I make all your enemies a footstool for your feet. So Christ is reigning now, and he's going to reign until all of his enemies have been defeated. So that's post-millennial.
Yeah, that is. And it also can be Amil, because Christ is reigning and he's going to destroy all of the wicked people, which is exactly what he'll do at the end of the age.
Yeah, but when he comes back.
Yeah, when he comes back, he's going to destroy them all. He will reign over all of them. He's reigning now as well.
1 Corinthians 15 says that when he comes back, he's only coming back to defeat death. All the other enemies have been defeated before he comes back.
Well, I'm sorry, where in 1 Corinthians 15?
I think it's 15:25.
Okay. It says, for he must reign until he's put all enemies under his feet. So he's reigning now, right? To be put the enemies under his feet means they're defeated, means they're destroyed.
Exactly.
Which is what millennialism says, that the wicked are going to prosper within his kingdom and he's going to destroy them all, hence Armageddon, right there.
Yeah, but the text says that he's going to continue to reign in heaven on the Davidic throne until all of his enemies are defeated. Once all of his enemies are defeated, then he comes back.
And also, one thing I would add is
no problem. He's reigning. He's going to destroy them, and he comes back. And this is all. I don't know what. See, the problem I think I can't answer is it like at noon this happens, at 1:50 this happens? I don't know. The same day. I don't know the exact order, but that's what I believe is that.
But I would just add. I got to go, but I just want to add one thing. I'm reminded of the image in Revelation where it says that the sword comes out of Jesus's mouth. So the means by which those enemies are destroyed is not some catastrophic, cataclysmic. He just crushes them all at the end. The means by which they're destroyed is the word of God. The gospel is preached, and they voluntarily put down their hostility towards him and submit themselves to him. That's what happens.
Yeah. Okay. And so that verse is Revelation 1:16. In his right hand, he held 7 stars. Okay. What are the 7 stars? Out of his mouth came a sharp, 2-edged sword. His speech, his proclamation, and his face was shining like the sun in its strength. Mm-hmm. Well, there's highly symbolic language there. And I have a problem a little bit, with the idea of well, the sharp 2-edged sword means only in this context, it means you can destroy him by what he says, which I wouldn't have any problem with Amil. It fits right into Amil.
Mm-hmm.
You can destroy them. He can, that's my position. It's all millennial. It's going to get so bad. The people are infesting. The wicked are infesting his kingdom. The Christians aren't doing their job. Jesus is going to come back and stop them. He's going to wipe them out. He's going to put them under his feet. He's going to destroy them. The sharp 2-edged sword, his declaration by his word, he's going to take care of them. New heavens and new earth are made. Because things are getting so bad, he's going to do that.
Gotcha.
That's what I do.
Well, Matt, this has been really fun, and I really appreciate it. This was an amazingly respectful conversation, and I hope that at least what I've done is put a pebble in your shoe that just irritates you for a couple of days. So,
no, I got that out right away. It was no pebble in there. I just went that because no disrespect, man. But what I like though is our disagreement in a polite way. We're still brothers in Christ, and I really like that. I enjoy that. So
I appreciate it.
The pebble, like in Daniel chapter 2, that grows into a massive kingdom, takes over the world.
Yes, that pebble.
That pebble.
But also in Daniel 2 is the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, right? And it's an eschatological. Well, it's eschatological ultimately, but it has a different kingdoms. And then down to the feet, what it says down there in Daniel 2:43. It says, and this is the clay and iron. This is the end times. In that you saw the iron mixed with common clay, they will combine with one another in the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another. From what I understand, the Hebrew construction means that they can't be people. So at the end times, this is my opinion. This is my opinion. As it was the days of Noah, so shall it be the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Genesis 6, the Nephilim, the half-breeds, that's what I believe is what it was. And that it's going to happen again towards the return of Christ. Wickedness is going to abound. And this is talking here in Daniel 2:43 about the wicked. I believe it's the Nephilim again coming back. That's not post-mill. Can't be. Because remember, in Genesis 6, the Nephilim, the Jews always taught that it was the offspring, the Nephilim were the offspring between fallen angels and women. In Genesis 6:9, it says, but Noah was perfect in all his generations. He was pure in his ancestry. Well, the flood came, wiped out the attempt by the devil to undermine the lineage by which the Messiah would come. He wiped everybody out. And of course, the Nephilim were still doing it afterwards. That was Goliath and some others. But that problem wasn't there anymore. But Jesus says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be the days of the coming of the Son of Man. For they were eating, they were drinking, like it was in Noah. And the wicked are the ones who are taken. Just like it was in Noah, that's how it's going to be at the time when Jesus returns. How does that fit post-mill?
Yeah, I think, well, Seth left. Now I'm all alone. So I'm not smart enough to do this, but I tend to think that the coming that's being spoken of in Matthew 24 isn't the second coming, the physical second coming, but Christ coming in judgment upon the Jews in Jerusalem. So I think that's what it's talking about. And what was your question?
Jesus says, as it was in the days of Noah, if the day of Noah was a Nephilim, then that would mean the Nephilim are going to be around the time of Christ.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I understand it as simply what happened in the days of Noah. The righteous were left behind, and the unrighteous, right? The sinners, the unrighteous, the people who weren't of God, they were taken. And I think that's what we see at the destruction in 70 is because even Eusebius records for us in his church history that the church left Jerusalem because they knew it was coming. They knew that the temple was going to be sacked, and they ran to the hills because Christ told them this was coming. And Christ said, "Hey, Daniel told you about this, and I'm telling you about it now. This is the fulfillment of these things." And so it's just like in the days of Noah, the unrighteous were destroyed, and the righteous were left. The righteous were left to go into the mountain.
There you go. See, you're coming over to my side.
Because, I know that's my side. That's partial preterism. That's consistent with postmillennialism.
Well, I'm a partial preterist.
Because once you don't have tribulation in the future, but it's in 70, then all you have in the future left is Isaiah chapter 20, Isaiah chapter 2, and the advancement of the gospel, and the kings of the nations bowing down and kissing the Son.
Well, I'm open to studying that concept of the tribulation occurred back then. That's what it's referring to. But I've always had a problem with it because it says in Matthew 24, in relation to that, there'll be a persecution that's never happened like it nor ever will be.
Yeah.
Right? Well, how many Jews were murdered in World War II?
Right. No, I understand. But so let me ask you this. When it comes to the book of Revelation, what's your perspective? Do you think the book of Revelation is talking about the destruction of the temple, or is it futuristic?
I don't know. I have not studied the Revelation enough about that. That's just a great question.
Well, there's a great commentary coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I just like to read through and go, what does this say? What does this say? And I did this chart thing, and I'm like, wait a minute.
I think if you read through it and you don't try to get boggled down with the details, it's pretty clear what it's talking about. Especially when you get to like chapter 17, 18, 19, and it starts talking about how this whore is going to be burned, and all the nations are going to see the smoke and all this stuff. It's talking about Jerusalem. It's talking about judgment upon Jerusalem, judgment upon the Jews, and destroying that temple.
But see, look, it says this, immediately after the tribulation of those days. If that's the tribulation of 70 AD-ish, all right? It says the stars will fall. I have a post-mill friend who said, well, that's an expression of this and that. I go, let's keep going. Then the Son of Man will appear in the sky. Now in Acts 1, 9-11, it's specifically said that he will return from the sky. That's how he's going to return. And he talked about that in 1 Thessalonians 4. He'll descend from heaven, from the sky, the clouds. That's what's going on here. Then the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they'll see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of the sky with power, great glory. That refutes full preterism right there. And it says, he will send forth his angels, the great trumpet, they'll gather together his elect from the four winds. That has to happen after Matthew 13, the wicked are taken. So this happens at the end of the age, because that's when he says this trumpet occurs at the end of the age, which is not the tribulation period of 70 AD.
Yeah, what verse is that specifically?
Matthew 24, 29-31.
29.
Yep. I hope you're right, though. I don't want to be right about this.
I am right. I don't know. No, I'm aware of challenges.
Yeah,
But
well,
it's
see,
like eschatology. There's holes in every eschatological system.
absolutely, absolutely. I don't have all the answers in my view. Absolutely. But it says they'll see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power. That's the return of Christ. That's when every eye's going to see him. He's coming from the clouds. And it says this is immediately after the tribulation of those days. It just cannot be that tribulation is spoken of what happened in Jerusalem. It was a great tribulation. But I would venture that that was greater than what happened in Jerusalem was to the Jews in World War II. And that pales in comparison to what's coming.
I just think that the reason that 70 AD is so significant is because it's the final blow to the adulterer. Like there is no more temple. There's no more, and we know throughout history that the Jews have tried to rebuild that temple multiple times, and they've never been able to do it. You know, with what's his name, Julius the Apostate, right? When they tried to build a temple, and God didn't allow it. Like an earthquake occurred that stopped them from building that temple. So God doesn't want that temple around. And
not until the right time. Not until it's the right time, because if he wants it rebuilt, it'll be rebuilt, and then it'll be a motivation for all the armies to come in and some other. There's answers, and but I think Matthew 24, 29-31 really pokes a hole in the post-mill position, particularly when you look at when Jesus will return and the two-age model. I just don't see any way past it so far.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't say that that's the second coming. We would just say that is Christ coming in judgment. Now, I'm not a full preterist. There are verses that talk about the second coming. Matthew 25 talks about the second coming. 1 Thessalonians 4 talks about the second coming. There's a bunch of texts talk about the second coming, but we would say that this one specifically is talking about Christ coming in judgment, not coming in bodily at the second coming.
Of course it is. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, moon will not give its light, star will fall from the sky, powers of the heavens will be shaken. I get the eschatological, powerful language symbolic there. Then the Son of Man will appear in the sky. Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. All the tribes of the earth, all the groups of the people are going to mourn all over the world. That did not happen in 70 AD.
Yeah, well, so if you take a very literal approach, I suppose you're correct. But if you go back to like the book of Isaiah, well, obviously not everything in the Bible is literal, right? We're not dispensationalists. Right. But if you go back to the book, if you go back to the Old Testament, routinely when God is judging a nation, he uses this kind of deconstruction language, stars falling, and usually when God's in the Old Testament talking about coming in judgment, it says that he's coming on a cloud. And that's consistent with what we see there with Jesus Christ. So I think Jesus Christ coming in judgment upon the Jews, because what I think happens is God creates this world, and he has an elect people, he has a chosen people. And of course, we read through the Exodus that they are disobedient, and they're a disobedient generation. And he curses them to the wilderness, and they continuously seek after gods. And God calls them an adulterer, right? They are guilty of adultery. And it even says that he gives them a certificate of divorce for her adultery. And in the law, the punishment for adultery is being stoned to death. being stoned to death. I think that's what we're seeing in 70 AD is God stoning the adulterer to death. He's saying, "I'm done with you," and that's what we see in Matthew also, right? In the parable of the vineyard, when Jesus says, "Look, it's like a man who has a vineyard, and he rents it out to these renters, and he sends his servants to go and collect the profit, which of course is the prophets." And it says that these renters killed the prophets. They killed the servants that he sent. And then it says, "Well, I'll send my son. Surely they won't kill him." And yet they did. And
I get it. Israel's being judged.
That he was speaking of him. So it's interesting because the text says that Jesus told them that he would remove the kingdom from them and give it to another bearing good fruit. So I think what you see in 70 AD is God being done with the nation state of Israel. He's cutting them off. He's stoning the adulterer to death. And that is so significant because that's never going to happen again in the course of human history.
Absolutely. I like that. I'll add that into my all-mill mosaic.
Do you like
It's
Jay
fine.
Adams?
What?
Do you like Jay Adams?
Jay Adams is my professor in seminary.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, he was a partial preterist, all millennialists. Jay was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, that's what I am now. But when I look at this, there's so much more we can talk about, but I just don't see it as being figurative because generally speaking, the prophecies are literally fulfilled, generally speaking. And when he says the Son of Man will appear in the sky, the sign of the Son of Man, what is that sign? That's a good question right there. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn. That's not just Jerusalem. It says they will see the. What?
How do you take Romans 11?
Well, let me finish this. It says, they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of the sky, which is how is prophesied he will return. All the tribes all over the world. That cannot be just localized in 70 AD. And I can go on with that. And then we get down to the.
It can be.
No, it can't.
Lines just a little bit. It can
No,
be.
I have to take it non-literally. I have to really spiritualize all of it.
Well, but you do that with other things, right? You said that the kingdom's already been established. And when I say that to my dispensationalist friends, they say, I don't see a physical throne. And David's throne was always physical. And then I tell them, Acts chapter 2 says that Jesus is on the Davidic throne and it's in heaven. So I'm just.
Yeah, I believe there's an actual throne. I have no problem with a literal throne.
I'm just saying that and not in every case do you demand a literal interpretation.
Yeah, except where the context necessitates it. I do believe in a literal throne that Christ is on for Acts 7. But here's the thing. It just says, it'll come with the clouds. Well, it was literally prophesied in Acts 1:9-11 how he's going to return. That's literal. There's no symbolism there.
I agree.
And he says,
coming back physically, literally coming back, I'm not a full preterist, it's heresy.
There you go. And so, good for you. And so that's how he's going to return. And the same language is used here. They'll see the sign of the Son of Man coming on the clouds. That can only be the reference of him coming back. Unless you want to say, well, this reference of the sky and the clouds isn't really literal. Now it's symbolic based on something in the Old Testament. And that's a problem. Because he says concomitantly with this, he'll send forth his angels with a great trumpet. And if you do a study on the trumpet, you'll find out that at the last trumpet, when the rapture occurs, the new heavens and new earth are made, and the wicked are taken. You go seriously study that thing I showed you, and you'll see. I can use the restroom. I can use the restroom.
Go.
But no, let's go. But I got to get going. I'm supposed to be on someplace else and helping somebody else talk about another podcast. But Romans 11, I do not believe that God's done with Israel yet.
I don't either. Because a lot of all millennialists will say, oh, well, the Israel spoken of in Romans 11 is the elect, the church. But I think in the text, that's not consistent. It's talking about ethnic Jews.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But that's post-millennial, right? Because what Romans 11 is saying is that once the fullness of the Gentiles come in, then the Jews will come out of jealousy. So all the other nations are going to come to Christ, and then after all the other nations, all the Gentile nations, then the Jews come.
That's what I believe in all millennialism. that the Gentiles are coming in, and then what's going to happen is the Jews are going to awaken by God, going to great preaching and teaching. The persecution is going to rise because the Jews are going to be there. Great persecution occurs, and then Christ comes back.
I think you're going to come around.
I hope you come around to the truth here. That's what I'm hoping.
No, I'm all millennial in the sense that I don't believe in a literal 1,000 years.
Same here.
I'm more of an optimistic all-millennialist than I am a true post-millennialist, because a true post-millennialist believes in a literal 1,000-year golden age on this earth, which is like the old school covenanter kind of guys. I don't believe that. I think the church age is the millennium, but I believe that there's going to be growth of the kingdom of God on this earth, and that the gospel is going to be effective.
So do I. Amen. The power of God's word. See, I'm a pessimistic all-millennialist. You're like an optimistic all-millennialist. That's what I kind of view.
But we call that post-millennialism today.
What's that?
Today we call that post-mill. That's what it's called. I don't make the term.
Yeah. Hey, it's good stuff, man. I really appreciate interacting with you. But I got to go check on my wife, use the restroom, get on another podcast. Okay.
God bless, sir. You have a good one. I love you.
God bless. Stop by again, man. Stop by. Enjoy it. All right, you guys. God bless everybody. I got to go. See ya.
Thank you, Matt. Have